prepared out my three-hour presentation because I went to Peter Rowan's class recently, and it was supposed to be an hour. It just kind of went on for like 3 hours. So I can say a lot of words. But anyway, thanks for having me. And yeah, so today I kind of changed it up a bit because it's such a short time. So I'm going to mostly, it's mostly like a Q&A thing. So I'm going to throw up some questions and get your answers. So if you have an idea of the right answer, please raise your hand, say it, whatever. And especially if you feel strongly about it, and I'd like to hear why you think. So this will be more like a, and these are, I think, the high points for startups from a legal standpoint. So that's kind of how I structured it. So hopefully it'll be useful to you. And we can talk more later. And my law school class is coming here in probably April to do some sessions. And so I'll be there with them. And so you can always sign up for those ones. So I'll just get into it. And I believe in like no more than 10 slides ever, because otherwise you're going to lose people. And also lunch is right after this, right? But I learned that from Guy Kawasaki. You know him? You should read about him. If not, he has really good ideas about presenting. So I'm just going to ask questions. So when should you incorporate? Anyone have an answer? Or another answer too? Because I get that question sometimes, you know, when should I form my company? I'm sorry, who said?
At the beginning.
What's the beginning?
Before you do it.
Okay, that's not even on there, so that's D, in the beginning. That's in the Bible, right? That's from the Bible, yeah.
I'll put an F, never.
What, F?
Never.
Okay, never, in the beginning and never, those are the two extremes. Anyone else? Just think, yeah.
Like when you begin operations, start getting revenue?
Okay, yeah, those are all, there's no right or wrong, by the way.
Maybe as soon as you have significant investment from yourself or others in the company.
Okay.
As soon as you, or right before you begin to take on liability.
Okay. So again, there's no right or wrong, and it's funny that no one used any of my answers. That's okay. But I think there's no right or wrong. I mean, you can clearly start in the beginning. I think probably never is probably a little too long. But I don't know if you're...
Well, I mean...
You had something behind that.
Well, there's so many other options besides incorporation.
That's true. When I say incorporate, I mean form a legal entity, because I didn't know what other word...
I thought you were strictly speaking about a corporation.
Right. So I think my take on it is certainly by the time you have liabilities, you should have a corporation or LLC or something, because it shields your liabilities, right? So that's certainly a big part of why you have a legal entity. Because otherwise, if you start doing things like signing contracts, then it's your personal liability. No one wants that. So certainly fundraising, you know, you got to have an entity to fundraise in. But, you know, I think this is the general rule I apply, is do it as late as possible. Do you know why I would say that?
Tax reasons?
Not really. Although if you say you form an entity in December, you got to file a tax return for that year. So yeah, it'd be better to do it in January. Sorry, speak up.
You start to give up control when you incorporate.
Not if you might be the sole owner, or you might have your founding group. So I'm not sure you give up control. It's the same people doing stuff. It's just in a legal entity. But you give up control when you probably raise investment more. Did someone have?
So you don't know if it's actually going to be successful or not.
So you what?
You don't know if it's going to be successful.
That's true, because if you form it and then you don't go forward, you have to dissolve it. That's kind of a pain in the butt. Yes?
What up, having to pay an attorney to help you file?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah, no one likes attorneys that...
General cost will incur when you have company.
If you form a legal entity, there's not much cost just to have the legal entity. You have a filing fee, then you have an annual fee to the state of maybe, for Hawaii entities, say $50 a year. So it's not really too... And if you don't do business, you don't have to do a tax return. So, did you...
The later you file, it'll give you a better understanding of the best way to incorporate.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. So a lot of times, like even for venture rounds, they like the fact that you're not incorporated because you didn't screw it up. And that's kind of what you're saying, I think. So things kind of come together. And so why do it early? There's no reason that you need to do it early. I mean, you may have a reason. Let's say your team members want to know how much equity they're going to get. So, you know, there might be reasons. But to delay it as much as possible less chance of screwing up. Because that's your job, right, is to reduce all the screw-ups. Because you're going to screw up something, but you want to postpone it, so you're trying to mitigate that, right? Just moving on here. What legal entity should you form?
Depends on what your business is.
Okay. Can you expand on that a bit?
Sure.
Pick one and tell us why you would do that.
Okay, if I was opening a small retail location, I would keep it a sole proprietorship.
Okay.
Or maybe make it a limited liability company so that I can shield myself from
Yeah. Okay. I understand. That's a good answer. Anyone else?
I would say never do a sole proprietorship, except for maybe that beginning phase.
Why is that?
Because it's the only one, aside from like a general partnership.
Yeah.
Unless we're talking about a limited partnership. It's the only one that, like, you have all the liability.
Right. You're kind of legal, yeah? Are you in the law school too?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, really? How did you learn that stuff? Just
I've done a lot of research.
okay. Right. So sole proprietor is unlimited liability for yourself, and a lot of people do business that way. Even like general contractors, I'm just shocked. Why is it a no-brainer? Because you could be a limited liability company as a single owner, and you're taxed just like a sole proprietor. So there's no downside to being an LLC with one owner. It's just upside. You don't have the personal. So if you strike out on your own business, t-shirt company or whatever you do, don't be a sole proprietor without an LLC around you. Does that make sense?
LLC
Okay.
actually provides you with protection.
Oh, yeah.
That being a sole proprietor doesn't, even if you're a one.
Oh, sole proprietor is just you.
Sure, but what if you're a one-member LLC?
Then it's LLC. But you're taxed like a sole proprietor. IRS calls it a disregarded entity. So the taxes is exactly the same. So there's really no downside other than the filing fee and the annual filing costs. There's really no downside. Plus you can get an EIN, which is not your social, and you can keep that your social private. If you have a sole proprietor, you got to use your social for everything. Did you have a question?
I do. So I set up our business with a single member LLC.
Single member, okay.
With EIN and all of that. But my father, for 30 plus years, is a sole proprietor, and I keep telling him that it would be good.
What kind of business?
He's a landscape contractor,
So there's a lot of liability there.
right?
So you just got lucky.
So he's one, or I've been trying to express to him that it would be good to switch.
Yeah.
He says, at this point, and this may be good for people that can have an answer to, like, if you're a sole proprietor for a certain duration of time, like, what is the process of switching to a single?
So you form the LLC.
Yeah.
Then you have to transfer your assets into the LLC if he's got equipment or contracts or whatever. If it's just ongoing business for customers, probably no contracts, right? But his equipment, he'd want to contribute to the LLC. Just that's an internal thing, unless it's like a licensed piece of equipment. Then you have to go to the state and get it registered in the LLC's name. But you got to treat the LLC with respect that it's the business. So you can't just form it and expect to immediately have a shield. But going forward too, you want to tell people you're the LLC. That's probably the most important thing, because otherwise, even if you have the LLC, if you don't tell them that you're blah, blah, blah LLC, then they can sue you personally, because they're going to say, well, I didn't know I was an LLC. Because you see, the disclosure is so key, because you're giving them a choice of not hiring you if they don't like the limited liability. If they don't know about it, then they aren't making that choice. So it's really key to put the LLC on your business cards, on your letterhead, on your contracts. So.
We filed our company as like a multi-member LLC, which turned out to be a little bit more trouble for us than I think if we just were an LLC. But can you have an LLC but have multiple owners of the business?
Yes, it's called a partnership under tax law.
Right.
And so you have to have an operating agreement that's like a partnership agreement. So it's more complex to have multi-member.
But what if you have like two founders that want to share the ownership?
Yeah?
But just have a like single member LLC essentially? Would it be
That's inconsistent.
inconsistent?
Yeah, because a member is like a stockholder in LLC language. So unfortunately, you're going to have to, and then you have to file a partnership tax return annually. So it just comes with the territory. I mean, if you were like a corporation, a regular C corporation, which is a taxable entity, you wouldn't have to do the partnership tax return, but it would have its own tax return. It's a taxpayer. And so it's a double tax, right? Because if you have a C corporation and you make a lot of money, it pays an income tax. And then when you dividend that money to the owners, they pay a dividend tax. And so that's more tax than you would have as an LLC, because there's no corporate tax. Now, yeah, the corporate tax rate went down, but there's still a double tax here. And so I think sometimes in your realm, everyone's telling you to be a Delaware C corporation. Have you ever heard that? Do you ever wonder why?
Everyone knows Delaware law.
Huh?
A lot of people know
Oh,
Delaware.
yeah. So, and I want to move on here because I'm otherwise we're going to go on for 3 hours. Do I have 3 hours? And we can talk more later, Delaware C Corporation, just remember this, you only want to be that if you're a high growth company and you're going to go public. If you're going to just make money, there's no reason to be a corporation. Because first of all, VCs are not going to invest in you. So why do you need to be a Delaware C Corporation? If you have a cash flow business, they want a business that's going to dominate the world. So you got to be realistic about what is your prospect for the future. Doesn't mean you can't make a lot of money. Cash is good. I think Eddie Flores owns L&L Drive-In. I think he's making a lot of money. He's not public. So, it still can be a big company, but it depends on what your end game is. If your end game is an IPO, then don't do a Delaware C Corporation because there's no need. You can still raise money in LLC from angel investors, even strategic partners. It's just not traditional VC because they have to invest in corporations. And there's a variety of reasons for that. And they love Delaware because of the certainty of the law. Franchise taxes, which corporations pay in Delaware, are to Delaware what tourism is to Hawaii. That's why they're so good at it. So you want to be in Delaware if you're going to do a high growth company. It's just the place you have to be.
And you said high growth would be more on the C Corp versus S Corp, where the shareholders pay the taxes?
Who knows? Do you guys know what an S Corp is? Or S Corp is like a regular corporation, except you elect not to have a corporate tax. So there's no double tax. The downside is, or the restrictions are, you have to have only one class of stock, only individual owners, no foreigners, and only up to 100. So that kills any kind of venture funding for S Corp. Or even angel funding. They don't want to invest in S Corp because you got to get common stock. And they don't want common stock when you get real money from people. They want preferred stock. So if you're going to fundraise, S Corp's out. If you're not going to go public, C Corp's out. The LLC would be the best because you can have preferred equity, you can have any owners, it's very flexible. There is a potential downside on self-employment tax, which I'm not going to get into. But again, if those questions I said lead you to LLC, that's the choice, even if self-employment tax is a little higher. Yeah?
And you can always transition into a C Corporation.
That's a good point. When in doubt, go LLC. It's much easier to go to a taxable entity than from a taxable entity to a non-taxable entity. That makes sense, right? Because if you're a taxable entity and you suddenly say, I don't want to pay tax, the IRS is going to make you pay for that, right? That makes sense, right? Because if suddenly very profitable C corporations decided they don't want to pay corporate tax and they elect to be LLC, you can imagine the IRS is going to stand there collecting the tax on that conversion. They're not going to let you do that scot-free, right? That conversion will be considered a sale of the business, and you have to pay the tax on the value of the business, right? So you can't do that for free. Otherwise, everyone would be doing that, right? If they didn't like corporate tax. It doesn't work that way. So when in doubt, LLC is always a good starting point. So we're going to be a corporation, LLC, it doesn't matter. Hawaii is fine, by the way, because you're not trying to attract venture capital, so it doesn't really matter what the VCs think. Where should you go if you're going to incorporate? I said Delaware, right? So you might say, but any other place you would find acceptable?
Colorado.
Really? Why is that?
One gentleman I met, because I was talking about C Corp for Delaware, he's like, you get a handful more benefits based out of Colorado.
Now, there's some states that don't have state tax, and they tout their states as places to incorporate, right? Like Nevada, I think, is one of those that has advertisements on TV. Come to Nevada, we have no tax, and yeah.
Don't you still have to pay tax for doing business in Hawaii?
Exactly.
So
This guy, man, he thinks he's a lawyer, man. You're taking all my thunder. I can't go 3 hours now. No, but you're exactly right. Those states, I get that question sometimes. I incorporate Nevada because I don't have to pay state tax. I'm like, hey, boo, where's your business, man? That's where you're going to pay tax, not where you incorporate. If you want to live in Wyoming, go ahead. Kill yourself. Not literally, but you knock yourself out, sorry. Not kill yourself. But But yeah, you got to be there. Now, there are some businesses where you can play this game of trying to be there, like software. You can locate your servers there and do your fulfillment there. So that's a possibility. But for most businesses, you've got to actually be there and doing your sales there, right? So Delaware is number one. Yeah.
I think Wyoming is kind of incorporating Utah's strategy of changing laws to be more favorable to big
But
entities.
again, no one's going to beat Delaware. Because in Hawaii, about 10 years ago, we were revamping our laws. We thought, why don't we just use Delaware's laws and try to compete? Then we realized we're never going to beat Delaware because it's not our tourism. They're like rabid dogs when it comes to corporate law. I mean, who else is going to do that, right? Every year, the lawyers, the executive branch, and legislature meets to discuss what can we invent next to help business. They're all focused on that, just like people here are focused on tourism. So why don't we just use their law? You know, there's no, because we don't make money on filings in Hawaii. Maybe these other states are hoping, and competition's good, but you know, Delaware invented, I think they're the first to do LLCs. They invented, you know, the LLC, what is it called? Where you can have multiple LLCs within one LLC. They invented that. It's not used very much, but you know, they're always coming up with new wrinkles. So, but Delaware is the place of choice. You just have to do it because that's what's expected, and you look smarter if you pick Delaware. You know, and part of it is we want you to look smart. You know, you probably are smart, but also perception is reality. So you want to look like you're doing the right things. Like if you authorize 1,000 shares in your company, you don't look smart. Because I get this question too. You have to authorize the right number of shares. I should have put that as a question. 10 million, 5 million, but not 1,000. Did you have a question?
Series LLCs happen.
Oh yeah, is that, see what I'm talking about? Do you want to?
I have a question about Delaware again.
Okay.
For the LLC,
Well, sometimes, no. LLC is less important. Sometimes you hear that just because people hear Delaware is a great place. There's no downside. The reason I do LLC, again, is perception. If we're going to have outside owners who are not from Hawaii, they just feel more comfortable with it because it's not Hawaii. I would say Delaware law doesn't give us really any distinct advantages when it comes to LLCs, except that it's kind of considered a neutral place. So if you have mainland owners, that might be something to think about. But I've never seen a Hawaii LLC having a problem, and people are less picky. Officer titles, you form a company, a corporation, let's say. You can have LLCs with officer titles too, by the way. Do you have, what officer title should you use? Anyone? Go for the gusto, you know, go for, you know, less impressive titles, like what would you do? Because these aren't purely legal issues, right? Because lawyers in this space counsel not just on the exact law, but trying to help you be successful. Again, we want you to look good.
B for perception.
Okay, that's the one answer.
Yeah, I think it depends on, you know, everything from experience to management and leadership capabilities.
So which one do you pick if you had a bunch of student founders? Or what would you go with?
I'd probably go with like COO or CSO.
So you go with B, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else?
So legally speaking, I'm pretty sure you actually need several positions.
What is it?
The type of corporation or that you join or found, you know, so it's like, you know, you might have to have a secretary, you might have to have a treasurer, you know, it all depends on which one you do.
Yeah.
You have to have somebody in that position, it could be the same person for all of them, so.
Okay, I would just leave you with this, is it's easier to promote people than demote them. Number one principle. It's human nature, right? I mean, number two is, I think you were kind of getting to this, is do you have the right skill set to have that title? If you're going to be the CTO at the start, then people coming in are going to measure you by, is this person appropriate for CTO when this company goes public? Because it's hard to, again, demote someone if they have the wrong title. And so I would say that I would probably, for a young team, go with probably C. I mean, there's no right or wrong here. Because I'd want the opportunity to promote people if they're doing well, then demote them or replace them with someone with the same title if they're no good at that person. Plus, I think you're conveying to the investors, you understand we may not be the final team. If they think you have all these lofty titles and you're going to be hard to change out, that's a risk factor to them. They might just pass. So these people don't know what they're doing, and we're going to have to change in the future, and we're not sure they're going to accept that. But a lot of times in fundraising, you say, well, we don't have a CEO now because we know we need to find somebody to do that. Or we don't have a CTO, or oftentimes a CFO, because we don't have someone that's taken a company public. We realize that. Then you look smart, right? So that's, part of the game, right? It's not just looking smart, that is a smart thing, right? If you don't want to be replaced and you think you're Bill Gates, go for it. But your chances are going to be way lower than if you admit that you'll step aside at the right time. That's a key factor. How many directors? You have 4 people on team. Quick.
3.
3, 4. Any reasons?
Because you want to have people to break a tie.
Odd numbers. You said 4? Okay. Any other? I would go with 1 or 2. Why? Because when you fundraise, you're not going to get more than that. And so I'd rather get that set up now. So again, if you have 4, who are you going to kick off the board? Plus, a lot of people won't really want to be on the board. It's liability, it's work. It's easier to not put them on than to kick them off. Plus, you're going to look smart if you only have 1 or 2, because you're going to fill out your board. I wouldn't focus so much on the odd number, because if you guys are arguing at this point, you might as well just move on. Seriously. That's not really, if you bring that up in an investor, they're going to go, I don't want to do this. They're already planning to argue. You want to hopefully not argue. It's like Trump said, I like people who don't get captured, which is stupid, but anyway. Oh, sorry about that. I know we're not supposed to get into that kind of thing. Oh, okay, I'm going to move on here because I think I'm probably going to get pulled out of here. What would you spend your money on legally? Anything? Because you guys don't have much money, right? Or you won't in your startup. So you're going to spend money on legal. What would you focus on, right? You got to have to make these choices when you're an entrepreneur.
Intellectual property.
IP, okay, that's probably.
D, retaining a lawyer because he can do all the rest of it for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have a question. If you're protecting your IP but you haven't incorporated, then you're protecting your IP as a personal matter rather than as a
You can always transfer the patent or trademark to the company. Might be your contribution, but yeah, that's a consideration to when to incorporate. I wouldn't say that would be the only reason you'd want to incorporate at the time. Because if you're an inventor, you're going to be on the patent anyway. You can assign it. So I would say, obviously as entrepreneurs without much money, you want to do it yourself mostly. I don't think there's any perfect answer here. I would say, patent attorneys don't work for free, so they're not like corporate attorneys. We tend to be open to deferred fees. So incorporating, you might not need to spend money on a corporate lawyer, but patent attorneys, and if patent's important to you, then it might be worth spending a little money. To do a provisional patent, you might have to spend like $1,000 to get the attorney to assist you. You might be able to do it yourself, but certainly getting the lawyer to take a look at it would be helpful and get them on board, right? So it could be none of the above. I wouldn't necessarily spend money on a retainer, but we'll get into that. This is that question. So if you don't have money, who would you use as your lawyer? Any quick responses here? Huh? What's that? Okay, your friend. You have friends? Oh, that guy right there might be good. Okay, anything else?
legal sale.
Okay, have you used that before?
No, but I've looked at it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would say, just real quick, like if you do it yourself, you have a fool for a lawyer, they say. If you use a friend or family member, it's not much further away from that because, just because they're your friend doesn't mean they're any good. And if they're not good, it's not necessarily because they're not smart, but, they haven't done it before. And, downtown Honolulu lawyer, there are those that will do it now on a deferred basis, like I mentioned. So if you have no money, you can actually, if you pitch them on your idea, you could get help. So don't shortchange yourself that, oh, I suck, no one's going to help me. What kind of attitude is that? You're going to say, I'm going to be the next Google. You'll have the privilege of helping me. I mean, I wouldn't say it like that either, but you have to be confident that you have something to offer. It's harder to find good ideas than it is to find lawyers. You know, we're like rats, right? I mean, it's harder to find a good idea than to find a good lawyer. So I would go with Silicon Valley. Why not start at the top, you know? I think we've done pretty well in Hawaii to get up to speed, and you know, we'll do a good job, but I think lawyers in Silicon Valley provide so many other benefits other than the legal work. They provide connections, credibility. If you get Wilson Sonsini, why not pitch them on your idea? I mean, I don't see that happening very often, but they would be glad to hear your idea, you know? So don't shortchange yourself. If you have a great opportunity, you're inviting people to go along with you, right? And lawyers understand that they may not get paid, but they might be helping the next Facebook. They're okay with that, right? So again, this is sort of a recap of all the things we talked about. What's the worst mistake you can make? And
Using the wrong lawyer.
okay, that could be bad. Yeah. Sorry? Right, because it's hard to reverse. I would say the things that are, because you're going to make mistakes. Don't try to not make any mistakes, because you've got to be bias versus action. But just make the mistakes that you can fix. So if there's mistakes that aren't easily fixed, like titles could be one, maybe incorporating in the wrong place. So you're in Hawaii. You can reincorporate in Delaware, but it's hard, and you may not be able to do that for free. So don't make the mistakes that can kill you, right? So there's really no right answer here. I think these are all mistakes, but there's some that are worse than others. Even like vesting, right? If you don't have vesting, I think I blew past that slide. Vesting is how you earn your stock as a founder, right? If you have the wrong and you have to revest somebody and extend how long they have to work, then that might be a tough one to do. Having too big a board, because there was a company here, Hawaii Biotech, that brought on David Wadamel to launch it as a VC-backed company, and his challenge was reducing the board from 9 to a couple. So that was a test for him, and he actually managed to do it, but it was hard to tell these scientists that they weren't worthy. So, oh wow, sorry, but my email's hard to see. Any questions? I think we're pretty much out of time, but